Good evening and welcome to this the Andrew Hudson Board of Ed meeting. It is Wednesday, November 12th. We are currently in session, but if you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, we're getting our agenda in order. Are there any items anybody would like to pull? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? And a motion to approve all items from the consent agenda. All those in favor? Okay. Our pulled from the consent agenda would be donations that were donations. If thank you very much. Is HHCEF. Thank you for $1,940. Actually, right there it is for the studio and community building. The HHCEF. I'm not sure 100% what that is. Are you aware? The BAM studio and
Yeah, the
community
BAM
building?
Studios is one of the old wood shops in the high school that Brad Fredman created. It's sort of a music studio for students who are in our music programs and for students who aren't. It's a place where they can practice, they can record. Pretty neat setup. I was down there this morning being filmed for the Inside Hen Hud TV show. So Brad's put together a number of funding requests through HHCEF to build the capacity and the reliability of the equipment so kids can cut their own records and sort of have their own musical production.
That was on the website. Oh,
Band
and we'd love to hear about it if you'd like to talk about it. Thank you.
Just saw it was over on the side.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, everybody. Yeah, so Brad Fredman's involved. I think this money, some of this money is for an Apple computer, so they can do some recording. So it's dedicated to that particular area. So, Brad does a lot with them. He takes them to actually, it culminates the work they do. They'll culminate with going to a professional studio down in, I believe, Tarrytown. And they spent the week there in April over spring break, and they recorded a whole album. So every year they do an album. And these are just kids that love music, may not be involved in band or orchestra or chorus or even the guitar classes here, but they love playing music. And Mr. Fredman is
Wonderful to get
like
that
the Pied
affordable.
Piper, and no pun intended. But that's he went to the we worked on a grant, and they were very nice to give the money for that computer.
There were two other donations to the Furnace Woods Element. Excuse me. To the Furnace. I'm sorry.
The Childhood Kitchen, you talked about that. There was a donation for the...
I know we're getting there.
You noticed that?
There is the a donation to the Furnace Woods School from once again an employee from New York Life, and the Blue Mountain Middle School donated $4,800 for the sound system for the middle school gym. So once again, it's amazing the support that the district receives from our PTAs and from the HHCEF. So thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve these donations? The BAM students, the Dinner in Childhood's Kitchen was the one that Mrs. Ayala was talking about. That was the other piece of it for the HHCEF. It's not referenced here. That was it was, I believe, for autistic children, was it not? The original presentation was the Childhood's Kitchen that Miss
Send it to
Ayala.
all the second graders.
I thought they were going to turn it into a road show too, weren't they? Are you talking about it? Oh, here we go.
There he goes
Here
again.
he goes.
So it was an interdisciplinary project, that Mrs. Ayala did. It was a puppet show that she worked on with our ELL students, and it was basically performed for the second grade, and it culminated in the second grade actually learning how to make puppets. So after the performance, it was a short performance. All the second grade certain second grades came in, and they actually left with puppets. She had a little workshop after, and it was awesome. The elementary teachers loved it. The kids loved it. It was really great. And again, our art people do a great job with the interdisciplinary stuff. It's not Miss
Okay.
Aiello, it's Miss Morrissey. So
I met
And
Miss
it was-
Aiello was telling me about it.
Yeah, and it also, I think it was on the road last year, I believe they were going to do something in Rockland County,
Yes.
Rockland County School.
So again, thank you to our art department. So, I'm sorry, if I have not, may I get a motion to approve these donations? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to audience comments. Okay. The next would be our superintendent's report.
I'm going to yield my time to our presentations and discussions. We have a number of different groups here to give us updates. One are our elementary principals to discuss our academic report from the 13-14 school year, as well as issues and items we're addressing in 14-15. And then we have some high school seniors here to discuss a proposal for their senior trip and some policy. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gottlieb to lead our elementary academic report.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So, to start the slideshow.
Yep.
I did this once before today. It was so far away, I couldn't see it. Okay. And then I can use this. All right, so welcome and thank you. Our three elementary principals are here, and they've all worked on their portion of this report for you. Some of it you've heard before, and some will be new. Last year we started based on the initiatives, the regional reform initiatives, and of course this is what guides our work still. So we're still looking at the teacher leader effectiveness, that's the APPR, excuse me, that you hear about, data-driven instruction, which you'll hear much more about, and what we're doing with the standards in the elementary schools. And this hasn't changed from last year. This is how our teachers are evaluated in New York State. 20% of the numbers on growth of children, 20% on some other locally selected measures we're benchmarking, and then of course the other measures are Danielson, the framework, nothing new there. A little bit new here, as you know, and we presented to you a couple of weeks ago. We've added the iReady assessment for children in grades 3 through 5. It's much more in depth, but it's new. We didn't have it when we first got AimsWeb. And we have other assessments for our kindergarten through second graders through their reading program. We're investigating iReady in math. Look at Lori, I know you're using it. And we continue with our common assessments, the benchmarking in reading, writing, and in math. That's when we really see what kids are doing, not just on paper and pencil assessment. And this is the data that I think it's now the third time you're seeing it, so I'm not going to dwell on it. We've got 2 years of data broken down by our schools for third graders, fourth graders, and fifth graders. And we've talked about this before, some high spots, some things we're worried about. But I'm going to go to our observations, which we made. Of course, assessment's important. Assessment data is important, but it doesn't define us. And that's so important. There's so many other things. And you'll hear from our principals tonight, there's so much going on in our schools beyond testing. And we've learned from the state, we're watching our leaders at the state level, telling us that they've created hard and rigorous and good assessments, but not complete faith in them yet. Not complete faith in what the scores mean yet. So we know that the state is saying that a 2 is partially proficient. It's not that you didn't pass with a 2 so much anymore. We want everyone to get to a 3. But the state is not requiring academic intervention services, or AIS, for students scoring the mid to high 2s. And that tells us a lot. They're not terribly worried about those kids that are going to graduate from high school.
I just have a really quick question. Suppose you have a child that has been in academic intervention all throughout their career and they attain a 2 on
Well, the low
test.
2s are still, they're below the state cutoff.
But would that
Academic
child
and
still be
AIS or
getting-
reading support, it's not supposed to be a life sentence. It's supposed to
I
be,
realize that.
extra support when you need it. And the goal is to graduate out.
Right.
However, if we've graduated kids out, we watch them very carefully. It's not that we don't want to provide service, but they're getting instruction in their classrooms.
Okay.
All right, so, it's not just a number and just, you fall above this number, we don't help you anymore. It's not like that. But the idea is to get out of those services. And you've read that the governor is backing off on using these scores for teacher evaluations, telling us that they're just not completely confident what they mean yet. But 4s were hard to get in the olden days, 4s were hard to get before the old cutoff, and 4s are still hard to get. And it's not all that different. The children who are attaining 4s, I always say it's akin to getting an 800 on your SATs. It's really hard to achieve a level 4. So, it's still meaningful. So that's where we are with our use of the data and what we're doing in our schools using it. Using Common Core standards, what we're doing. Last year at this time, we told you we had committee work going on, looking at math and looking at literacy. At this point, we're in the second year of implementation with the Engage New York math modules, and everyone's much more comfortable because we've seen it before. And teachers are more comfortable, and our kids are doing well. Our teachers are, our second grade teachers are saying it's amazing what the first graders are coming in with. So, good. At this point, our math committee work is working on the technical, get the right pieces to people. But we're done with the implementation piece. And we're very much in the implementation stage in literacy because it's brand new this year. Where we were in math last year, it's hard and new and stressful, and teachers aren't sure what they have to include and what they can leave out, so time consuming. But we'll get there as we did in math, and we'll continue to work on it. Something that you'll hear a few times tonight is the word GRARE. It sounds new, but it's not. GRARE is, we've been doing it forever. It's guided reading, which is the small group instruction where the real teaching takes place in elementary classrooms. And the other part is accountable independent reading. Accountable does not mean that you write a book report for every book you read. But it does mean that kids are keeping logs, teachers are keeping an eye on the children are actually finishing books. We've all had students who pick up a new book for independent reading every single day. And that's not useful or helpful. We've all seen kids do that. So there needs to be some accountability. And the old sustained silent reading didn't necessarily come with accountability. So this is a refinement. We keep learning. Things keep getting better. So that's where we are. And the committee work continues. The math work, we've got our 3 coaches or facilitators. We call them all kinds of names. But, they've really been behind this work from the beginning. And the literacy, we're restructuring a bit to bring the kindergarten through second grade and the 3-5 groups together. Time for more vertical conversation. And Lynn Rafalik and I will be facilitating that, but leadership with our principals who are all here. So, our tasks to provide support in math. We're focusing on writing, of course using assessment data, and teaching testing as a genre. Not that we teach to the test all year long, but taking a test is a genre. You have to know how to read these tests. We don't, it's not what defines us again. And of course, always with any new curriculum, evaluating as we go along and planning for the next year. So I think we're up to Furnace Woods and Dr. Kramer.
Yes, thanks, Paul.
This goes forward.
This here? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to, the 3 of us are going to touch upon 3 major points. So things that have been happening that we're proud of, things that we're focusing on, and then what we're going to do moving forward. So last spring, I emailed parents before I started and asked for feedback about Furnace Woods and their perceptions of strengths, concerns, whatever it was that they wanted to share. I'm happy to say the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and I was thrilled, when I saw what it was. But 2 of the things that really struck me were the 2 points that they made as far as the biggest strengths at Furnace Woods were teacher dedication and a caring staff. So to walk into a situation where that's parents' perception was great for me. And I can honestly say I've seen that over the last few months as I've gotten to know the teachers and visited classrooms on a daily basis. I really do see that the teachers care and they go above and beyond for the students to do whatever they need to do. Parental involvement was another strength that parents reported on, and I've experienced this as well, especially with the fair a few weeks ago. It was amazing to see how the PTA worked with the teachers to really transform the building into something out of this world. If you've never been to the Furnace Woods Fair, you should come next year. It's really a great experience, and it was a huge success. So parental involvement is definitely strong at Furnace Woods. Unfortunately, I can't take any credit for our math scores last year, as I wasn't there, but they were also a highlight for the staff and for the students. And I'm very proud of the work that was done. I've talked to the teachers a lot about what they perceive as what led to the high math scores, and they talked a lot about professional development and collaboration. They had opportunities last year to work with consultants who helped create the math modules, as well as experts from BOCES, and they participated in a lot of grade level planning, pretty much daily collaboration within the building, and then regular collaboration throughout the grade levels and on the district level as well, which was very helpful. The math committee, of course, supported their work and helped in creating a lot of resources that the teachers have been using that are on the Google Drive, and obviously led to some success in that area. So this year we're continuing our focus on math, but also shifting a little bit to ELA. And as Alice said, one of the big focuses this year is GRARE. And it's a lot more than just reading groups. It also includes students working independently and being held accountable for that independent work. So the teacher will meet with a reading group. They'll be reading a leveled book that's appropriate for the student's instructional level and their skills and abilities. And while they're talking about the book and reading and practicing their fluency or their comprehension, the teacher's collecting data so that she can plan the next lesson and the lesson after that based on that real data that she's collecting while she's working with the students. The students who aren't with the teacher yet, sorry.
Just because this is being filmed and be shown to, could you explain what level books are?
Sure, absolutely. So the students are grouped according to reading level, and that data comes out of the iReady assessment that we administered, or the assessments that teachers are giving in the classrooms. And they're leveled according to, we're using the Fountas and Pinnell level, which is a letter that goes from A to Z. So the student, if they're at reading level R, then there are books that are then leveled as reading level R, and they'll be reading that book with the teacher. The instructional level means that it's a little bit more difficult than what the student's able to read independently, that they need a little bit of instruction and guidance as they work through that book, and that's why it's the instructional level and they're working with the teacher at that level.
Okay.
So the students who aren't working with the teacher, who are doing their accountable independent reading, may be reading a book that is at their independent reading level, or they may be doing work for the book at their instructional level that the teacher has prepped them for during the previous reading lesson, to work on comprehension, to work on vocabulary building, whatever the case may be. And those groups could change week to week. As teachers are targeting particular skills, they may change a reading group because some students are stronger in one area than in another, and they may want to focus on different groups of kids at different times. In order to support the teachers in their work with GRARE, I've been holding grade level meetings with them on a weekly basis to talk about what GRARE looks like, what it is that they're doing in the classroom during GRARE time, what it is the students are doing in the classroom during GRARE time, and also what the data looks like that they're collecting and how they can use that data to, to drive instruction and to best help the students and meet their needs. As a faculty, we've been talking about Bloom's taxonomy and the levels of questions that teachers can use in their instruction to make sure that they're targeting students at all levels and all abilities. We also have a book closet in the building that has not been used as effectively as it could be over the past few years, so I'm working on reorganizing that, cataloging the books. It contains sets of 6 books for each title, and they're all leveled so that teachers will be able to go in and pull sets of books to use with reading groups at any particular time. And based upon what we have, I'll order some others to fill in the gaps of what we need. So another area of focus is response to intervention, or RTI, and this is also something that's happening in all 3 buildings. The response to intervention basically is the process that we use to make sure that we're supporting the students who might be struggling a little bit within the classroom. So students who didn't qualify for reading support but are still struggling a bit in the classroom, we'll start with a Tier 1 intervention, which means that the classroom teacher is assessing their needs and providing them with some extra support within the classroom to help meet those needs. Their progress is tracked for 6 weeks and monitored very closely, and then the teacher does an assessment to determine whether or not they should continue with their Tier 1 support, or maybe they've caught up and they don't require that support anymore, or if they require more than what he or she can provide within the classroom setting. In which case the teacher would refer them to ISD, or the instructional support team, and they would assess whether or not the student should get the next level, which would be Tier 2 support, which would be pull-out with the reading teachers. And then the reading teachers, if their support isn't quite enough either after a few weeks, then they'll look at Tier 3, which would be more individualized instruction rather than a small group. So that's something that I've been working with the teachers to formalize that process as far as the paperwork that needs to be filled out and keeping track of that system as we move forward this year. So what are the must-haves at Furnace Woods? Again, based on the parental feedback, one of the things that they yelled about overwhelmingly was enrichment opportunities. So I've been working with the staff and with PTA to try to bring some of that to Furnace Woods. Chris Wickel, our phys ed teacher, and I have been talking over the past week or so about starting a student council at Furnace Woods. It's something that is in place at the other 2 elementary buildings, and I think would be a great leadership opportunity for our 4th and 5th graders. So Chris and I are working this week, or next week rather, to introduce that to the students. We're going to send a letter home to the parents telling them what it's all about, and we have some ideas moving forward for some projects the kids can do. It will be 4th and 5th graders, 3 representatives from each classroom, and the students will have to apply, basically. So they'll write an essay, answer a couple of questions about why they want to be part of student council, what they can do to benefit the school, and then we'll do a blind rating of the essays. We'll cover the names, and we'll pick 3 from each class that we feel would be appropriate. And a couple of the projects we've talked about thus far are a fundraiser for the Hudson Valley Hospital Auxiliary, who's approached us and asked for some help in that area, and also for the students to help the PTA out with Spirit Week this year in the spring. So she'll meet with them monthly and during lunch and recess. So they don't miss any instructional time, but they'll still have an opportunity to help their school and take on a leadership role. The PTA has been working on starting after-school activities, and it's a slow process. So I've been talking to them about that a lot, and because of our schedule the way it is, it's a little tricky because although students are dismissed at 2:30, the teachers are still working at Furnace Woods until 3:10. So having the teachers participate and facilitate those after-school activities isn't really an option right now, but they're going to look to ask parents for parent volunteers who would like to facilitate some after-school activities and hopefully get that running hopefully soon, up and off the ground soon. We've tried to implement a little more competition at Furnace Woods as well, and the PTA had asked us about collecting box tops and creating a competition with that. So we decided to do a grade level competition, and the grade level that collected the most box tops for the month of October will receive some extra recess time. And 4th grade was very excited to get their extra recess sometime this week. They collected over 500 box tops just for the grade level for 4th grade, which was fabulous. And over 2,000 box tops school-wide in just the month of October, which I told was very high in comparison to last year, what was collected per month. I'm excited about that. And finally, differentiated instruction is something that I always look for when I'm in a classroom. I talk to the teachers about it constantly to make sure we're meeting the needs of every learner. Not just teaching to the middle, but make sure we're extending for those who need it and also providing support for those who are struggling as well. So that's a continuing conversation. Greer will certainly help with that, as the students are in their reading levels with their level books. They're getting the instruction that's best for them. And the Tier 1, of course, will support the struggling learners as well. So we continue to look for opportunities to provide enrichment inside the classroom and outside the classroom at Furnace Woods. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before I start, I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with Dr. Kramer and Mrs. Teresi. It's a great team during our regular meetings, so just wanted to share that with you. All right, now BV. One of the big things that we're focusing on as a district is literacy, and we were very proud of the improvements in students' reading levels. We measured it through the Fontes and Pinnell assessments. We have the Level Literacy Intervention Program as our remediation tool, and we've seen tremendous growth, and we expect that to continue. What we've also noticed is with the reading levels improving, that's also carried over into math, which is a big part focused around literacy with all the word problems and the complex phrasing. So the reading focus has carried over into all subjects. Another thing that we're very proud of are the student leadership opportunities. Now, the students know anytime they write a letter to me, it will be taken seriously. They might have it sent back to write up a proposal with specific details of how they're going to accomplish it, but it's great to see that they take advantage. Most recently, some fourth graders said they would like to do a talent show as part of our showcase before the PTA meeting. So they put it together. They said the parents will be involved, doesn't involve any staff members, and in January before the PTA meeting, it's going to happen. So that's one thing we're very excited. And again, I've received letters about spirit days, fundraisers, school beautification, and when they think it through and don't just drop it off and say do it, we always follow through so they feel that sense of empowerment and that their voice really makes a difference. The student council is great, led by Mrs. McConville. Two new things we have this year that we're very proud of are the BV News team. You might have seen the weekly interviews of new staff members. This week it's Mrs. Varela, one of the new teaching assistants, and they're going to be starting stories of interest to them, whether it's about inspirational teachers, the history of our school, or anything else that they come up with. And the BV Ambassadors comes from the trip some of our administrators went to in Nashville. They were talking about how when they went there, they were greeted by students, they had a tour around the building, and I said, well, we could make that work. So I asked the fifth graders who were interested. They wrote an essay about their communication skills, what they know about our school, why they love our school, and 3 students, you can see we're all very professionally dressed on our parade day, are our new BV ambassadors. So any school function like our PBIS assembly, they were up front explaining to the crowd what was happening. We had a new kindergarten family coming. They led the tour along with me. So you'll hear more about how our ambassadors are leading our school. And again, the showcase, I talked about the BV's Got Talent, but we do that every month, and it's about the students teaching the family members because we know how important family engagement is. And we've had the 5th grade students teach about the writing process and each stage of that. Then they had the parents try it. The 3rd graders did the multiplication methods. Got that alliteration. K through 5 just recently did a showcase where the K and 1 taught about PE games, 2 and 3 about music strategies and sounds, and 4th and 5th did optical illusions and themed plaster masks. So that every month that will continue.
And they really, I have to tell you, I was there, and I was shocked at how the little kindergarten students were explaining all the games to their parents and the rules and to their siblings, and they knew everything.
It's funny, Mr. Kissinger said he was walking in, he was going to try to help facilitate, and he's like, I don't think I should even walk in there because the kids had it under control. So thank you. So things like that are very important to us and the students. And finally, the last thing I was sharing about being proud of is the school community understanding of RTI that Dr. Kramer was talking about and how we use data to inform instruction. It's always been important. Some of us did it, some of us didn't, but now this is really an expectation and one of our few focuses that we're really driving home with that laser-like focus. We have team meetings regularly. We involve the math coach, the RTI team, and we're looking at student work, and it's really, the conversations that people are having with each other are outstanding. We talked about in a first grade meeting, an issue one first grade teacher was having, and then the other 2 chimed in, well, have you tried that? Have you thought of that? And they're really bouncing ideas off each other, and it's where we want to be. And it's contagious, so that's what we're proud of. And the areas of focus really tie into what we're growing with. We want to not start introducing new different things, but continue the focus around literacy, around RTI, around data to further enhance it. So one of the things, the literacy focus, we have a voluntary book club around The Book Whisperer by Donalyn Miller. We have 14 people that chose to come and meet and discuss it in the morning, read on their own. So I'm very impressed with that turnout, and it's going well so far. What we're trying to do with the RTI piece is create a bank for one another to use. We have websites like Intervention Central. We've had access to Pat Quinn, the RTI guys' resources, but teachers are great resources in and of themselves. And you know, students often have problems with two-step word problems, one-step, picking what operation, sight words, trick words. It's the same issues over and over again from year to year, and people have created great templates to address that. So we're trying to put it in District Share and on Google Drive to help one another handle it. Cohort data analysis. What that is we have a spreadsheet that we refer to in grade levels. We meet in a room with the smart board, the wireless keyboard, and the mouse, and we say, let's look at the student. How are they doing this year? Where are they supposed to be? How did they do last year? Kind of like what you were saying earlier about, we don't want the students to flatline or not make the necessary growth, so we look at them over time, talk about what's been tried, what can we do differently, and just pick the brains of all the people that are involved in these discussions. With that, it takes a village mentality, and it's really great to see those gains over time. And again, Mr. Hill has been an outstanding asset as the math coach in our building, not only helping with the math, but as a classroom teacher, he has great literacy recommendations as well. Coming back to class libraries, and I'll jump back and forth. The must-have I shared is books. We talk about the importance of reading independently daily. We've really worked hard to build up the libraries, moving things that weren't used into the classrooms. We have a book nook, but they need to have it in each of the classrooms, not a shared site, so that students can go to a bin, grab a book of interest or at their level. So that's really our focus. Where I always love to spend money is more books to offer for the teachers or for the students. So our teachers have done that. The reading teachers made a special presentation. Come, find what you need, and they're one of the biggest advocates with our Reading Buddies parades and events. But that work needs to continue. So that's where we're at. All right, Mrs. Teresi.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening.
I messed up already. I wore my Lindsay Red. I'm supposed to be Sailor Blue. I'm sorry. I'll work on that
I'm
next
sure
year.
Jim has some outfits that he can change.
I realize that as I'm so proud of being a PBIS sailor,
He's
I
ignoring
realized
you now.
I goofed by putting the red back on. But well,
okay.
like,
You're
it's
friendly
okay.
anchor.
We're on fire at Frank G. Lindsay, as I've been told.
There you go.
So at Frank G. Lindsay, we have a lot to be proud of. I kind of was cut down to one slide, which is pretty hard because we're just busting at the seams with a lot of things that are very productive this year and last year and the past couple of years. One thing, the progress in math that we've had this year has been unbelievable. The grade level meetings, grade levels talking K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 together definitely has some great conversations. Teachers sharing ideas, and really, really taking an investment in the modules this year. Things that were such a turmoil last year has turned to, I got it covered, we're pretty good. And they're actually seeing the building of the strategies as we move from grade level to grade level. We're actually seeing children beginning to do algebraic expressions in the levels of K and 1. And it's wonderful to see a second grader being able to count that change. So if you have $2.35, how do I get the $3? They can do it without a cash register and a calculator. They can give it to you, which has always been a hardship as we know it. But because of the building skills that we've obtained, it's really working. But by the time they get to high school, they'll be mathematical geniuses. I guarantee you.
He's taking notes.
No problem. My word is my honor. Excuse me? Okay. Another wonderful piece that we are really celebrating is our response intervention team and process. This team has been developing over the past 8 years. And in the 8 years, facilitators have really taken an astronomical role in leading our other staff members in developing the process. But I want you to make you understand, response to intervention is not just for children that are not making the cut. It's also for advanced children, and how do we meet those needs? When we had to make a quick decision to move a child to a different grade level, our response to intervention team was quick to look at the diagnostic tools, identify the situation, both socially and academic, to move that child to a different grade level. So when we look at response to intervention, we also have to also use it for an enrichment tool. And I think that's where we kind of fall short, and that's where we want to go further. Right now, my response to intervention team actually is taking its turn in the principal's cabinet, which I'll lead to as another positive here, in developing professional development between the hours of 8:30 and 9. Teachers have already stepped up to do classes for other teachers on a volunteer basis in data processing, techniques, interventions. So my staff is really taking their 8:30 to 9 time and using it not only to tutor our children, but also to work with other staff members in developing those tools. So I would just love to, I wish they were here, I would hug every one of them. It's a team of about 10, and it's just wonderful because after we had our faculty meeting, 5 teachers came to me and said, I'd like to do a class on this, and I'd like to do a class on that. So we got professional development, 8:30 to 9, at no cost to the district. Our principal's cabinet is well underway. As you know, a principal's cabinet was also known as a strategic plan team, or it may have been known as a site-based team. But since we're a little flux with the strategic team and the site-based, we decided to call it the principal's cabinet. Not that I'm into myself, it's just that what I could kind of think that was...
It works.
A little. So anyway, the principal cabinet serves 2 functions. What do teachers need and what do kids need? And the principal cabinet is happy to celebrate its 4th year of the After School Academy. Right now, in the 2 years, this year and last year and this year, we have over 700 participants of children that stay after school. From literacy, to math, to writing, to yoga, to nail painting, to anything you can imagine that a child has an interest to. So a parent could do drama if they want. The teachers have really stepped up. As you saw on the website, we had football. Let's get those kids away from the television set. Let's keep them after school. Let's work on a little more community. Let's build a better tomorrow by getting them off of those PlayStations and in school for something they like. It's our way of providing an enrichment program for kids beyond the school day. The Million Minute Read is going to also start off on November 24th. And what that is we are now challenging our students who only had 750,000 minutes last year to hit the million mark. There's prizes, awards, there's dancing, there's singing. There's another assembly underway, bigger and better than the Sailor one. No, I can't say that. Mr. Mackin was instrumental with Mr. Baker to provide.
He could help.
He was wonderful. Yes, well, I have to say, one of the things that made Frank G. Lindsay very successful is Mr. Mackin and his staff at the high school. Mr. Brad Fredman, who comes in with his peer leadership and works with our kids. And tomorrow they're making leaf wreaths, and yesterday they had pumpkin wreaths. The kids look forward to this. He works with the general education population and our ABC children. And it is a phenomenal program. And the leadership that they've actually brought into our building, the kids look forward to it every day. So I do want to say hats off to the high school for their hard work in keeping us their sister. So the Million Minute Read is, like I was saying, is underway, and we have some tasks for Mr. Fredman for this also. We haven't told him yet till tomorrow. But that is what it's all about, is to increase reading. We're asking anybody, from board members to famous people, if you know them, to come in and read to our children. In school, out of school, and after school, to help us with our Million Minutes. PBIS, as you've seen, we've taken the Lindsay Lion, we've retired the Lions, and we are now Sailors, as we try to reunite the whole district of the Hendrick Hudson School District. And hopefully our sister schools too will join us. We have that plan in getting them involved also. That was a spectacular event. Part of the PBIS and part of that also is also our student government, which drives the PBIS and drives the Million Minute Read in the principal's cabinet, because we do listen to the students. I will be meeting with my president, my vice presidents, my House of Representatives. Everybody's a little bit of a winner. Everybody participates. But that's where our goal is this year. See, I kept it in one slide. Our areas of focus. To teach the principal how to use the button. I messed up. I don't have my glasses on there. Sorry. Am I back?
It's okay, you got back up here.
I know, I have the glasses on my head, so thank you. Our areas of focus still is the next slide. Faculty meetings have always been a learning event. We're going to change them a little bit differently. K1 is going to be meeting, 2-3 is going to be meeting, and 4-5 is going to be meeting at every month to look at the modules and the domains and to see if there are other activities or how to do the differentiation. Our concern right now is we don't want to, be very rigid in these modules. We have to improve in the differentiation and especially the GRARE, as we've talked about over here in literacy. So when we look at our faculty meetings, it won't just be me standing up and speaking. Not that it always happened that way. We did have faculty presenting, but it's more time on task with teachers working together and sharing ideas. They'll be coming out with a document that shows what they've worked on and where they want to go the next route for the next meeting. So it's more of a little bit more of a college kind of growth model that we're doing with the faculty meetings. The literacy too, again, our focus is on GRARE. We need to really bring our 3s to our 4s. It's not just about meeting the special ed needs. We need to meet more 4s in this building. We can do it. I know we can do it. And the only way to do it is to go out with the GRARE. Informative text and informational writing is huge. Even as a teacher for 14 years, I emphasize those areas. And the children made leaps and bounds, constantly progress mining and analyzing the data, looking at the cohorts, where they've been, and where they're moving. That's another team of our data team that is associated with our RTI team. I'm afraid. The must-have is a principal that's technology savvy. No. When I talk about early intervention, I'm not talking about the first grade program. What I'm talking about is because we have lowered the amount of support we give to our talented and gifted kids, and because we also need some help in the AIS program, we got to look at early interventions. We have to pay careful attention in January, especially January, when we look at our data teams, what children could make that 4 mark, what children we can make to the 3 mark, and how we're going to reach out to them. We have our AIS programs now in our kindergarten, and I want to thank you for that, because we didn't have that at Lindsay for the past couple of years. We didn't have any AIS in kindergarten whatsoever, and this year we have it, which will kind of help. But we also have to look at getting a good handle on what excites kids and intervening with them at an early age. We have to set the path. If we don't do it now, by the time they get to middle school and high school, they would have lost their love of learning. So when I talk about, again, early intervention, not the first grade program, again, we are definitely looking at improving how we reach out to the multitudes of children that we have in front of us and the differentiation. And that's it for Frankie.
Thank you.
I think what's exciting, I'll make a comment and then any questions Alice or the team can answer. I think what's exciting is we're building a K-5 approach with our response to the Common Core. And it's not easy because you have a lot of traditions, you have a lot of experiences with our staff, you have different textbooks and different series and different ways of approaching literacy and math. And one thing that the Common Core did do was it made you commit to a set of educational experiences for kids. What is unique about our district, and many, but unique about our district with 3 elementary schools is what you've heard today are 3 distinctly different paths of getting there. That each school has its own DNA, they have their own climate and culture, and it's always a negotiation, for a lack of a better term, between your staff, their experience, the resources and talents that they bring to the school that creates a different climate and culture. So we don't want robots. One size doesn't fit all, yet we know that what we're being asked to do is implement a much more rigorous curriculum with more fidelity across 3 schools. And what you heard today are 3 distinctly different ways of getting there based on the leadership from the principals, the experiences from the staff, and most importantly, who the kids are. It's no secret that our 3 elementary schools have different demographics, and with that come a different set of opportunities and challenges. So it's great to spend time in all 3 of our elementary schools and see how they're achieving a universal and uniform K-5 approach in very, very different ways. That's that's a great thing about being in a diverse district like us, because we want to be able to say, as a superintendent, as a board member, that whatever neighborhood you live in, here are the experiences your children will have, but they will look different in each school as they should. So it's exciting. The Common Core is not easy. I think we've had a lot of discussions around the implementation and how it happened, but our principals and our staff have responded very positively to trying to get the work done as best we can with the resources we have. So questions for Alice or the principals?
I have a few questions. I just want to know, are the services that are provided, like reading, math services, whatever, I know we have math specialists in each building, I know we have reading people, I know we have speech people, but is this determined based on the RTI data so that we can shift people as needed
Absolutely.
from building to building?
And we
So
did
that's
that.
definitely going on.
We did that reading this year. Math is there's one math specialist. in
No,
this
I know
building.
that. But in the
Different
future, will we be looking at that if one building requires
All
more?
sorts of things.
Okay. All right, that's one. My second question is, based on GRARE and leveled reading and the whole emphasis on that, I know last year at the Frank G. Lindsay PTA, we had a wonderful presentation by the librarians who were outstanding in explaining the use of ebooks and things. And I know we had a free selection of ebooks last year, but has there been any determination? Are we going to continue with that? Is that still available to children? The use of books online?
Sure.
Because it just would make sense if you can get 400 copies of a book that, all second graders could participate in reading at any time. That would make
Well,
sense.
the e-books are still, it's not that there's a gazillion copies. There's still, books. There's all kinds of copyright and all that.
No, but I thought,
But we do have
when-
access to, the
Yeah.
reading A to Z, and you can print from that.
Right, there's the reading A to Z, but what Barbara's talking about is they were piloting a program in November, you're right, where they actually could bring the books out, they could highlight, they
Right.
could share, it's
All of
wonderful.
that. That was
They're in the
excellent.
process, that's gonna cost money, but it's an excellent program. The teachers would have more at their disposal electronically. So that would be something like Mr. Cohen had mentioned, that could also be one way of getting the level books, is through the ebooks.
Right, and that I was under the impression that if there was a particular title book that, let's say, 200 kids across the district had to read, that, you could get that many copies.
And in all different
And-
levels.
What?
And at different levels.
Right.
Right. The same book, same title.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
different ways.
But I just think, we're talking about GRARE and making sure the children are reading on their own individual levels, and this might be something that the librarians might be able to help us, begin to implement once again.
Yes,
So-
the role of the librarian is priceless, I have to say.
It absolutely is.
It absolutely
I agree
is.
with you.
What they provided in research material using Noodle and all the docs that they were doing with the students definitely is priceless. Unfortunately, we only have them in the 3, 4, 5 half a year, and then it's, I know, we all have to look at that also. But it's important, if we're looking at literature as being our big thing and changing our Lexile and our levels, it would be important to look at that position. But the ebooks are great, that's probably something we have to put on the table for the budget for the upcoming year.
Right, and also, would you be able to accept use, like people, I'm sure parents have books in their homes, that the children are no longer reading. Do we still accept donations?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, that's a question. I mean, two of the schools have identified level books as kind of an issue. Do we have to wait for next year, or do we have some money?
We've been working
We
on
talked
this for
about that
years.
too at PTA,
We've been working on this for a long time. The book closet that
At
two of
Furnace
the
Woods.
schools, all 3 teach schools have is for level books.
Yeah.
It's something that we'll be working on forever. You need a lot.
I mean, you can't just solve it right now.
You can't just go and buy a box of level books somewhere. You build a collection over years.
Right, and
But
that
we're-
changes.
Right.
But the e-books might be a better alternative,
Well,
you know,
you need to
because
have
this
the
way,
books.
if you needed to do away with the
We need
type.
both. We need
Okay.
both. We need books and books and books.
Quick question about reading levels. If parents call in and ask their teachers, can they get their child's reading level so that, you know, holidays are coming up, maybe grandparents want to buy books for the kids for the holidays, and they're like, I don't know what kind of books my kid is reading, or what level they should be buying, because when you go online to buy books, you can't open the book and look at it, it's very cumbersome. Is there some way that those reading levels can be used so the parents and the relatives can buy their kids appropriate books?
Or have the parents ask for
So
like suggestions?
all three schools do share that information with the family members. But one of the great things about the iReady program is after they do the assessment on the computer, it gives you a Lexile, which, you know, there's millions of things you can convert that to, whether it's the Reading A to Z, the Fountas and Pinnell, and then it has a button where you can link to student interests. So it's a little survey. What do you like? I like sports. I like art, whatever it may be. And then it gives you titles at that level. You could also say these books are too hard, too easy, and it shoots you to the right spot. And then it has a link for families, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, I think there's something called Cafe out there. So we're always trying to share that information, not as a be-all, end-all. You know, if you're really interested in, you know, Thunder and Lightning and the book's a little harder, you can still read it.
Right.
Sometimes you want to do something a little easier to practice fluency or other skills. So it's a guide, not a be-all, end-all. But we do share that and try to guide parents to buy books, for us to buy books.
So that's something parents could ask their teachers.
And they should. You know, we always encourage, you know, we want them to feel empowered and have a voice. So teachers will share, but we also want family members to do that as well. Ask questions.
Would be wonderful.
I just had it, we're not quite done.
Board finish with their
Oh,
questions?
I'm
we're
sorry,
not quite
that was
done
mine.
yet. Oh,
It's-
no,
sorry, I just kept,
Oh, it's okay.
we'll invite you back, Peter. That's my mistake.
No, I just I thank you for the presentation and the great work you're doing with our students. I just had a different perspective and, you know, some food for thought on the leveled instruction, and something that perhaps we could think about and explore, because with the Common Core, some of the shifts in instruction really require students to read grade level text and be able to analyze the text. There is definitely a dichotomy that we have to consider. I just pointed this out to Dr. Gottlieb, but there was an excellent NPR piece today called The New Colossus about a group of students in Reno, Nevada, which implemented the Common Core actually before New York. And this fifth grade teacher talked about how when the students actually read this poem, which is the one inscribed on the base of the Statue of Liberty, give me you're tired, you're poor. And it's quite complex if you look at the language, but
You know,
yeah, but
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the whole emphasis on grammar is a reaction on the part of New York State and on the part of teachers to all of the whole classroom on level and above level instruction. So in every one of our elementary classrooms, from kindergarten through fifth grade, students are spending a full hour of time on appropriate, hard stuff. So the independent and the guided reading is in addition to. So don't fear that kids are reading on their level all the time.
because it is, I think it's important to have both.
But our
yeah.
instruction, it was heavily weighted towards full group, really above level. And, with scaffolding if needed, with help and support for kids if needed, but pushing kids. But there was a huge reaction in the state, but when are we teaching kids to actually decode? When are we teaching them on their own level? Because we know that's how they learn.
Because you can take a text that's complex and still have the class read it together and
Well,
break
that's
it down.
exactly what we're doing for most of the time. But the GRARE was added this year in New York State, and it's a direct response to an understanding that you need to balance between the full group.
Right, because this article did note a shift away from level of instruction a bit, but it's still necessary to some degree. But I think it follows what the superintendent said about having common language and having these readers.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
We're pushing.
No, I'm not worried. I'm just noting it's a dichotomy, and it's a difficult time to be teaching because you really have to do both. But I think the shift, we hear a lot of negatives about the Common Core, but there is the positive, which is really getting students to be able to really interpret these complex texts on grade level, all students.
That's all?
That's it.
That's it, you're right.
That's it. That's my knowledge. I could be.
You can go on. And I thank you again too, but not but anything. I just want parents to realize that, because we do iReady as well, that please don't say, how did my kid do? How did my kid do? It's more for the teacher to realize where your child is so they can guide instruction. I shouldn't look at the principal, I should look at parents. So be careful with iReady, because parents should be careful. Don't say, well, I want to know my kid's score. I want to know what they did. That's more for teachers to guide their instruction and to see where they're improving. And some parts of iReady you haven't reached yet. I know you guys are going to pilot the math part, and you'll notice that when you do the math, it gives every standard. And quite frankly, you haven't reached geometry yet, so you might be finding 6th graders at the kindergarten level simply because you haven't gotten there yet. So the more you do it, hopefully you see that they progress the more you teach. So just just parents be aware of that. I'm so glad we're going back to Bloom's. Go ahead.
I just want to add on to what you're saying with the levels. It's more important the specifics. So we might say, level P, if they're curious or going to a spot that you could buy level books or, based on Lexiles, but it's more about, they need to work on books that have CH blends or things like that. For math, they need to work on adding, above 10. So even if we do give that information, it's more about the specific why they're at that level than anything else. So I agree with what you're saying.
I noticed that all three of you concentrate a lot, and it's great, on promoting leadership among your children. Josh, you talk about it all the time. Do you incorporate the 7 habits, or because when you said that, we're kind of doing the same thing. We have a group of kids, and somebody had to do essays. Cindy, was that you?
Yeah.
They're writing essays. Do you also do an interview process where the kids actually have to talk to you?
We haven't talked about
To be on student government or something like that, to be your leadership, public speaking. It's funny because I love that we're doing some of the same things. And Josh, I think you would really love that 7 habits. So all of your different things are based on being proactive or seeking first to understand. And it seems like you're doing that. Have you
Not as formally.
researched that at all? You're greeters. That's typical stuff, and that's when you start, when they're so little.
Handshaking one year.
Right, when the principal walks in, one person goes up and shakes her hand. This is what we're doing to you, cute stuff. But thank you so much. What I didn't hear was science and social studies. Do we do that at all? Just asking.
Yes, we do. Social
Look
studies.
at the 3 of you.
Oh, they're not sure.
They're like, oh, I'm not taking this one.
No, I can. What do I say? No.
So there is some science and social studies embedded in the modules in grades 3 to 4,
Correct.
and also in the domains in K to 2. That being said, that's more informational, background knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have Science 21 kits in the classrooms, and the teachers are teaching from those and doing hands-on experiments and such in the classrooms on a regular basis. Finding time to fit it in is difficult, to be perfectly honest, because the literacy and the math is very overwhelming and time-consuming. But they are finding time to fit it in. Social studies is a little easier to incorporate in the reading and the reading groups and such. 4th grade spends a lot of time on Native Americans and New York history and such. And so I've been in the 4th grade classrooms a lot, and they're doing some great Native American projects that go along with what they're doing with their reading groups and that realm. So yes, it is being done. It's not so much a separate entity.
So it's not scheduled.
Right, not necessarily, but it's there, and it's infused more with the literacy.
Well, science
than
is your
it used to be.
realistic reading. Social studies as well.
Right, the nonfiction,
but,
right,
no.
exactly.
That might be a point.
Does that help?
Improvement point. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do we do penmanship?
Alice?
That was the topic of conversation today, and actually, we are
They can't write on a
gathering
line.
a group because I'm not willing to give up penmanship, and many teachers are not willing to give up penmanship. However, when
You said that you're not willing to give
I am
that.
not
Okay,
willing
go
to
ahead.
give up, but when our days are so packed full that we have a group. We decided that this afternoon at the grade level leaders meeting that we can't just decide right now in isolation. There's research. There's lots of research out there that there's a reason to know how to write. If only to read historical documents, which are written in script. There are reasons to have the skill, and yet we also need to be able to keep working. And if you ever saw the schedules of our, most especially our primary teachers, when? It's
But
so
then when
chock
do
full.
they learn to write?
Well, it's gonna happen, but I don't have an absolute, it's gonna happen next Tuesday.
I just read one of my educational journals, and that was a
It's so
big-
important for so many
a
other
big
reasons.
discussion
I mean, it's
on
also
the importance
It's a
of
huge
handwriting.
even holding
And
this pen and
especially for
pencil,
me,
they
because
write
God,
like-
I taught so many hours devoted to
It
handwriting.
was
Right,
kind
they-
of disheartening when I received thank you notes from graduates this year.
and they
And the
couldn't.
penmanship,
Well, what
I mean,
happens,
it's-
what happens, no matter how much you teach penmanship, is children are taught in second and third grade. Children are mandated to use it in fourth and fifth grade. And then they get to secondary, to middle school, to high school, and we're happy that they can write. And some kids use script, and many kids are keyboarding. And I can imagine that your thank you notes.
Well, by the time after 6
Almost
years or
almost
so
block
of them
letters.
using,
Yeah.
And it gets to a point of speed where the emphasis is no longer on what you're writing, so
It
long as
just
how
doesn't-
fast you're writing it. I mean, you're bombarded with information in every
or
single
again, you're
class.
typing a lot, so and it's
And
sort
you're
of like
typing
muscle
a lot.
memory. If you don't use it,
But
it's,
it still has so many
But,
important
you know,
benefits.
we as adults, we all have our combination script brain. You know, we've all adapted. You've got gorgeous teacher script.
Sixth
Yes, I
grade,
do.
Mr. Cannell.
It's just also important
Left-handed.
for motor skills as well. When I have people coming in writing like this, what are you doing? It's like painful for them to write, and you need to know how to write. You have to be able to write letters. You have to be able to write your essay on the SAT. You have to be able to,
Is it a handwritten script?
Oh yeah, not script.
Not script, but
But I'll tell you though, there's one section of one paragraph where you have to copy it. It's like a 2-sentence thing.
See?
Have to copy it in script, and it's one of the hardest parts of the essay.
You see,
for
I was
everyone.
talking about that today.
You have to be able
I
to
have
sign your name on a
very smart,
contract.
Very capable, and competent daughter, so I had to.
okay, I think we're like,
I would
I think
say
we've digressed
real
here.
fun
Sorry.
one, but-
I just don't.
Have you met a doctor or a lawyer who has good penmanship?
Well,
But that was my penmanship is my big thing, only because
it doesn't matter.
right.
And it's true, our teachers are very stressed with the time frame that they have in a day. But I think realistically, it's something that is important, I feel, for children to master. So, and also I was neglectful, I started my questions. Thank you so much, principals, for the hard work that you
have to
do.
deal with a
And
lot.
evidently, I love going to the PTA meetings and seeing what children are doing. And it's just been very beneficial to see. I'm very proud of our district from that, so thank you.
Good night.
I have two professional development questions.
Oh, not them? Sorry.
One is we talk a lot about staff development or professional development for staff. How do principals get professional development?
no.
Just yes, that's
Dr. Kramer was just at one today.
I was. BOCES offers a lot of things for principals and administrators. I was at a workshop today, enhancing instructional leadership skills for elementary principals, and it was great. It was an afternoon, and we're going to do another afternoon in December. There were 5 of us there, I think, and we just talked about different strategies that we can use to help facilitate instruction within the building. So it was a really nice group, and it was small, so we could have a lot of discussion and such. There was a principal's leadership 2-day conference over the summer, again sponsored by BOCES and the elementary principals group. So there are a lot of opportunities out there, and we get emails regularly with different opportunities, and we can sign up for the ones that are of interest to each of us. So.
And you do some of the same things like Ms. Tracy was talking about in her cabinet. You all talk amongst yourself.
Yes, actually, we've had a lot of meetings. We meet with Alice and Joe regularly to discuss things, as a district. But the 3 of us have also met just us, just to talk about things and hash things out and discuss. And what have you tried? I've tried this and such. And that's been it's been great for me as a new person to see what's going on in the other buildings. But I think we all benefit from it as well.
You heard earlier a math consultant last year that really helped us get our elementary math program going, and just other people we've been able to connect with through BOCES or other agencies. The principals have been there with their staff. And that's important too, that it's not that there's a symbol of that the work is very, very meaningful. It's not, first grade teachers will go to this meeting and they'll fill the principals in. They're there learning at the same time or a chapter ahead. This is new for everyone. What the Common Core has done is it's leveled, good, bad, or indifferent, leveled the playing field and has really taken a lot of traditional methods and experiences, and everyone hit the restart button, including educational leaders as well.
The other question about professional development, at the last SEPTA meeting, we did a presentation on the CSE hearing, and they talked about the RTI process, and they really kind of divided it in a triangle into two pieces, and one side was the academic piece, but the other side was behavioral, and what was defined as was social and emotional. How do we do professional development for staff and identifying those social emotional things so that kids feel safe in the building?
Well, the response intervention is divided into those models. Our PBIS team actually has a behavioral portion of it. So when we come to IST, if the concern is behavior, then the PBIS team comes in, which is led by Sabrina Pereira, and then that's when we send out mentorships for people. That's where we get the peer leadership piece from and the peer buddy piece from. So that's what we do. BOCES offers training levels 1, 2, and 3. My staff has been trained in level 3. So that would be actually doing the behavioral plans, and we also work alongside our behaviorists with that also. But before we had behaviorists, it really fell on the buildings. That's why the PBIS training is at the 3rd level where the behavior piece comes in. Because that is a big component of a child being academically successful. You have to know what really makes Johnny tick. And then you have to have people that actually go in, are trained in observing that student, and are actually can set a plan, or people that he could relate to that will help him.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Nobody mentioned the Horizons program. I assume we still have that in each of the 3 buildings. I know Frank G. Lindsay does.
We have, as you know, Horizons, we've had 3 teachers of the gifted, and we're down to 1. And she's on roller skates. But we have 4th grade reading and math in each building. And criteria is always in flux. Right now, we feel a little bit more confident because we added another level with the iReady, which was very consistent with the ELA. And as I mentioned earlier, scoring a 4 is something. So we know those kids. We're treating it, and Donna talked about this, as a response to intervention. That the children who are at the high end need intervention as well. Need more support. Could we be doing more? Absolutely. Could we have
More bodies?
Oh my goodness, yes. Or a more, more rigorous process. And we are looking at the policies that I believe last spring in 2002.
Yeah, we have a policy on paper and then a practice, and Alice and I discussing, even Josh and I and Don and I earlier today in our meetings, and Cindy will talk on Friday, but around the philosophy of what enrichment and gifted means. And if we look at gifted and enrichment through the lens of RTI, the numbers and the criteria may change because we're measuring those students against ourselves as opposed to a national or a normed reference assessment. So if we take our own top 2%, 5%, 10% and create a set of experiences for them, those bodies may change, and there may be multiple opportunities to be eligible for enrichment, and there may be times where, as we heard today, we're really excited about the January literacy diagnostic because we may have kids that haven't met their end of the bargain or who have flatlined. That's a great opportunity to have a conversation with family to say, you're in this enrichment program and perhaps not using our time or resources best. So it's a philosophical conversation we're having and proposing, and need to have more input from our principals to determine what we stand for and what our vision is around that.
Another thing to keep in mind with that, I guess, is this has come up several times, but Frank G. Lindsay is about twice the size of the other elementary buildings. So if you have the same size enrichment class for each
But
of the
it's
three
not.
buildings,
It's based on the
is
children.
it based on
And
the
children
children's
are there.
levels,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
you just max
And
out
it's-
each class?
No, not at all. It's, there are numbers that go across the district. So that's not the case at all. Frenchie Lindsay gets more time.
Can I also add one important thing? I think sometimes in the past we look at enrichment as an extra or something extra to have. And I think it's important to look at, if we want to compete with the other school districts and we move our 2s to 3s and our 3s to 4, we need to look at that enrichment program and try to bring it back as much as we can. Because I know we want to be in the top 10% percentile. You know, we want to see ourselves like 5th or 6th in the county. And I think it's great to get AIS services on, that's wonderful. But if our kids are not getting the enrichment piece also, we're going to be just stuck in the middle. So I'm asking, you know, please look at this.
No, absolutely. I think, and I agree with Carol, I think part of what she's saying is that I think every child has a certain set, you know, I mean, their skills are what they are, and whether it's a child who struggles or a child who doesn't, you have to give them, ideally, what can get them, you know, what can reach their potential. And whether, you know, whether that's somewhat limited or it's unlimited, you want to give that, you know, whatever end of the spectrum that child is, you have to give them what he or she needs. And that's, you know, I think that's what Carol's point was, is
right,
that,
and
you know.
also, if you ignore the strongest learners, then it's
They don't
a
remain the
huge-
strongest learners.
They don't remain the strongest learners, and it's a huge waste of
Opportunity.
a national resource, really.
It's a huge opportunity. Yes, I agree. Barbara just nudged me and said, "Don't forget the librarians either."
One thing I think that should be considered is, even if we don't necessarily have maybe the financial fiscal support for more enrichment programs, some of the concepts which I definitely only remember getting from Horizons programs, I think should be brought to the main classroom. And it's a shame that obviously I'm coming from a way outdated perspective. You know, it was a ton of years ago. It's just a crazy thing to think about. But I
as old as we are.
The landscape has completely changed. It's a
5 years
In
different
that
landscape.
short amount of time, right, Jazz?
Yeah, it's
I know.
absolutely insane. But I do remember, and I don't remember the exact program of what it was called, but there was a combination when you were in both the reading and the math portion of Horizons. There was the research. Exactly. Okay, so I think things which I learned in there should be brought to the classroom if they're not. That was, you know, picking a topic, falling in love with an idea, and being able to, at least on some level, even if we're not able to teach the hard sciences at such a young age, at least give them the understanding to question things. And, you know, I'm not really quite sure, you know, what stage it is now and how the classroom is. But I think that's an important factor to keep in.
But you're absolutely right. Research is such an integral part of, you know, what we try and teach children how to do, you know, research projects, and all of that prepares you when you're at this point that you
And
are.
it's what
in high
colleges
school.
say is actually lacking the most from high school graduates.
It's true.
You know, you gotta be curious to research. And that meeting that you and I went to a long time ago, Dr. Gottlieb said that kids start to lose their curiosity in second grade. And that's the thing that we have to keep in school.
Well, thank you. Actually, that's one of the things that I think they did come through on your reports is the intangibles. You talked about the ownership and the responsibility and the leadership and those kinds of, getting the reading programs and the, healthy competition and the PBIS programs and the student government and such. And that's really that's a huge piece of it as well. And I thank you for putting so much emphasis on that. And again, the keeping the curiosity and the enthusiasm alive. I mean, that's as important as, all the other, the specifics and the actual, it all comes together. And it's key to making them the students that you want, that you send to the high school, that will become the leaders that, sorry, Jim, that will become the leaders and that will become,
I was thinking it's got two high school kids here.
But those are the children who are going to be the ones that you want. You want to give them every opportunity. So thank you, by giving them such a broad range of opportunity.
Look at Chaz. Chaz turned out.
There you go. He's a star. We're still wondering about Cornell. So, if that was it, thank you very much, and we thank you for all your efforts and your hard work, and your teachers as well. Yes, I'm just. Audience comment. Yes, Theodora.
I have no comments.
Now.
Questions?
I'm done.
Questions?
Are there any other comments, ladies? Your daughter?
She's got her own agenda behind me.
Always has.
Good segue. So our next presentation are from some of our
Seniors.
high school seniors who are making a presentation to the board with regards to a senior trip. They've put together an itinerary. I know they've worked with a travel agent. They've done some homework and due diligence, and the purpose of this discussion is to apprise the board of their plans or of their request, to ask some questions from the board to the students, and also Mr. Mackin, who will support them. I don't know the history, and Jim can weigh in, or other people, of the enormity of senior trips. I know some schools have done 6 or 8 hour bus rides. Other schools have done annual trips on airplanes. I think it's cultural and unique to each school. But I do know that this request is a little bit different than what's happened in the immediate past, which is why we wanted to bring the level of discussion to the board. And my last comment is part of any field trip process ultimately includes board approval. So with something of this significance, we wanted to have an opportunity in the forum for some dialogue up front before the formal request is made for your approval. So with that, I'll turn it over to the ladies.
Hello and good evening. We would just like to thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to express our ideas and just talk about what we find is very relevant to us as seniors here at Hen Hut. So I'm Rachel, and this is Elena, and we are the co-presidents of the senior class here at the high school. And so we would like to just talk about our ideas for senior class trips. We work hard, we are a very intellectual grade, we are very competitive. So we just think that we deserve a nice little break in the school year, preferably before the big tests come in. We earn it. We're submitting our applications to college, so we just want to have a last hurrah before prom, obviously. So why should we go? The senior class at Hendrick Hudson High School deserves to travel to enjoy themselves, especially without the restraints of a formal school setting. Within the protection of both the parks and the advisors. So obviously we will have people from the high school faculty come with us, but it has more of a free air to it. We're allowed to have fun within the restraints of the parks, obviously. The students will have the opportunity to socialize and have a sense of freedom, as I said before, prior to leaving the halls of the high school and moving on to a new chapter in our lives. This year's senior class as a whole holds expectations of one of the most mature and responsible classes that the high school has seen in a long time. Thank you. Okay, so this is the breakdown of the trip. So the duration of the trip, it will go on from Friday, March 13th to Tuesday, March 17th next year. So just to give a bit of a time frame, so at approximately 6:35 p.m., we would hopefully, the students and advisors together will depart from New York via the Stewart Newburgh Airport to fly into Orlando, Florida. The group will reside in the Port Orleans Riverside on Disney's Magical Express transportation. And then we have different agendas for each day. The first day we will obviously travel and get there and just settle down and relax. The second day we will be at the Disney theme parks. The third day we go to Universal. The fourth day we go to a water park. And then the fifth day, we get ready to leave, we pack, we check out, we get to relax on the pool side, and each student is given a voucher worth $150 for food, and approximately $1,200 will be the cost per student, and obviously all schedules and prices are subject to change, so yes, especially because of airfare. So yeah, that's for that slide. And then the benefits of traveling. So class unification, we must emphasize, this is our senior year. We want to all have fun as a group. We are a very cohesive group, and this trip will just emphasize the cohesiveness that we possess throughout the students in our senior class. Going to Disney will be a great opportunity for students to travel outside of the tri-state area. Not everyone is able to travel to this country or that country, so we can go to Florida. Students can experience different cultures, and we will be traveling under the established reputable Graduates on Tour Incorporated. And we have a student actually in our class whose mother teaches in a school in Tuxedo, New York, and she's been traveling with this company for the past 11 years. So we know how reliable it is, we know how great they are, we know how organized they are with creating class trips, and so we know that we can rely on them. And also, this is just a great experience. As I said before, we're not traveling out of the country, and also, I personally think that this is fun for kids of all ages, even adults. I have never been to Disney World, and I am looking forward to just going there, and I just think it's a great thing for everyone to do. And yes.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. You guys probably heard already. Basically, we wanted to go on a senior class trip as in just enjoy our time together since it's so limited. Even though the fact that we will still be coming back during our summer breaks and winter breaks during college, this is our last time to be together as a group and really just enjoy ourselves together. And it's going to be about more the fact that this is our time to spend doing what we would like in a setting that isn't our school. Which even though for prom we would be together spending this time, we will be spending 24/7 with each other, which I feel is just an overall way to end with a great exclamation point on our Hendrick Hudson career in general. But I think Rachel already hit on the major points, so that's it.
So just thank you again for having us tonight. We really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions, comments?
I have one. Jim, how would this work for the student athletes? Because one of the biggest things I know, having kids that come through the district with athletics, the coaches try to refrain from having the kids. I know a lot of kids have not gone away with their family on spring breaks because the requirements. How is this going to work? Have we thought that through? How is this going to work with the different spring sports?
You guys want to answer? She will answer. We haven't really looked at that yet because we know there's a process for the board to kind of give us approval. We're kind of behind the timeline as far as these costs that they've priced out. We're past the initial timeline, so a lot of these costs would have to be looked at again to see if they would go up or down. We'd have to look at that, and then people would have to make decisions about the commitments that they've made to sports, and my opinion is if you commit to playing a sport, that you don't go. That's just my personal opinion. I think that when you commit to a sport, you commit to that for the season, and that's something that you need to hold to. So we definitely understand that there'll be some conflicts that we have to work through, but it's not anything that we haven't dealt with before. We've had conflicts on many things that we've had to work through, and sometimes it's just a matter of making a choice, which is not a popular answer for me to give to people, whether it's classes. You got to make a choice. There's only 9 periods in the day, and you can't have 17 AP classes. This is kind of the same thing. If you're participating in something that you're committed to, and now this opportunity comes up, because not everybody will go, you have to make a choice. And, you have to be supportive of that. Yes?
How is the trip being funded?
It'd be funded by the individuals. There's no funding coming from the district. Individuals are funded.
So if a child can't pay for it, then
Is there any fundraising efforts in?
I'm not sure that there's any fundraising.
You guys are promoting class cohesiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a reality is that everybody doesn't get to participate in everything that goes on here, and that's a life lesson a lot of times. You don't get to go on everything that you want to get to go on. You don't get to do anything you want to do. That's not realistic. I think we have a group of students that have investigated this, have looked at it. We could look at it from the other end and say, why should we prevent people that can go on it from going on a trip like this? I don't disagree with your point of view. I mean, if I was able to, I'd pay for them myself for everybody to go. I think we all would do that. But I also think we have to start looking at it from the other direction, which is we have a group of people that are talking about cohesiveness and wanting to make have an experience with each other, and as we should support it if we feel that that's the right thing to do.
How many children are we talking about?
Again, we're not sure because we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. We didn't want to be disrespectful of the process and go out and say, "Hey, we already have 400
No, but is
kids."
there any minimum kind of?
Well, I think that's something that we would establish and say, we're not going to go with 10 people, but we would certainly say, we'd have to set a number once we looked at it to make it appropriate. Now, we have some field trip guidelines for chaperones. I think it's 1 chaperone per 15 students is recommended in the policy. So we'd have to look at that and make some decisions. But we kind of have to do it quick because as we get into the season, airfare continues to go up, and this is a pretty big deal for them to go out of Stewart. Again, they came to me with this. I'm supportive of my students. You all know that. I certainly understand the political nature of some of these things and maybe some of the liabilities that people are concerned about. But we do send kids around, not necessarily always having to do with curriculum. We send people on trips to parks to participate in music competitions and other things like that where, they're school sponsored. I think they did a great job presenting. I'm proud of them. You can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay, to answer the few questions. So we have not reached a definite body count for the trip, but we would hope that we can. Sorry, bad phrase. Okay.
That didn't make me feel any better.
So sorry. So we are hoping that at least 50 students will want to join the trip, and obviously there may be a few conflict with sporting events, or not sporting events, practice preseason tryouts. So we're hoping that we can at least get 50 students, but we're very hopeful with this because that's a small portion of our grade. We have over 200 kids in our class, and so we're confident that we could get to 50 students. And also with the fundraising, we were considering finding methods of fundraising, but since prom is kind of more of a cohesive event for the entire grade, and we want that to be affordable for the entire class, we're focusing fundraising more on that. We've already done 2 or 3. And so this Disney event is more of an opportunity for anyone who can afford it. Obviously, the downside is that not everyone can go, but that's understandable. Mr. Mackin said that is going to happen. So we're just focusing that more towards the senior prom because we obviously want that to be the big event for the senior class. We want that to be everyone's favorite memory of their senior year. And so, yes, that's just what I have to say to that.
Rich, would you mind if I said a quick thing?
Yeah.
All right, so I serve as treasurer too, so I can speak a little bit on this. So I think that there are quite a few class trips, whether they're school funded, not funded, but whether they're school sponsored or something past graduation, to the point that not everyone in the class, at least not past a certain threshold or percentage of the total population of the class is going on these trips, to the point where someone who couldn't afford it would feel like they're being excluded or being left out. There are plenty of opportunities for people, after prom, things like that, where there will be class cohesiveness for a much lower price. So I think it'll be all right that we are focusing our fundraising efforts towards the exponentially increasing prices of prom. So.
Just to reiterate what Jazz is saying is, as a collective group, I know as Jazz said, he is also part of our cabinet. And we all collectively decided that in order to make, because prom is such a epicenter of the high school experience, that should be the most equitable of all the events that we are doing. So therefore, we have decided as a group to focus all of our fundraising on that, to lower the cost enough that tickets will not be exorbitant, because there's also added expenses of prom, which I know from females are the dresses, the limo, all the stuff that goes with prom. So we wanted to make that as
I know what the cost is for.
Oh my God. And so we wanted to make sure that prom was one thing that is able for anyone who does have a problem financially is able to attend no matter what their
causes. So that's why we did not choose to fundraise for this trip instead.
Just 2 more points. From a personal perspective, my daughter was a senior last year in a district up in Dutchess County. She went on the trip. She was a student in a class of 875. About 100 students went on the trip. So I think we need, I just would caution you, I certainly want to be sensitive to the people that may not have the means to do it, but it's also not everybody's cup of tea. It's not something that everybody would want to do in the first place anyway. So, we have to just make sure we look at this from all perspectives, just to be fair.
So what makes this a school-sponsored trip versus just a group of seniors going to Florida? What's the...
Well, I think that's up to you. I think that's up to the board whether or not it becomes a school-sponsored
But I guess
event.
what are the
I think the history there is that we used to have a lot of these trips connected with foreign languages. When I was a student, many of the trips that we see now that are not sponsored by the school district were sponsored by the school district. They were endorsed by the school district, and I'm sure. Speaking with lawyers, there's probably some liability that happened along the way that had school districts separate from these.
Is it just that teachers go as the chaperones or not, or
That and under the assumed liability of the district.
Also, the guidance under education law says that field trips are definitely part of the curriculum and something we encourage and we want people to participate, but it really does have to have an educational purpose.
If it happens during the school day, I believe that.
It's any part of the day. But the concern is we need an educational purpose to approve this. And if you want to, we can articulate one, and I think that's important because that's part of what we do here. This is, and the other part of it is we do have to make sure every student who would like to participate will have a way to participate because it is part of the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the commissioner's decision. So we don't want to exclude people. So this is wonderful, and we applaud you coming. But it's something we'll have to consider, as a board. It could be, it is a private recreational trip, not a school-sponsored trip, which will be fine. It doesn't mean anybody can't go. It's just something we have to consider.
Well, I think, with that said, Marion, I think that respectfully we have to then look at a lot of the field trips that we take to ensure that they're all curriculum-based and they all have a curriculum basis for them because I think there are trips throughout the district that maybe don't meet the guidelines. So I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah,
maybe this discussion is a good opportunity to look at all the field trips that we take in the district to make sure that they follow those guidelines so we're all consistently following the same rule.
I know, for example, the middle school we did eliminate the ride playland for that reason.
Well, I'm not identifying anybody in particular. I'm just saying, I think where we get into trouble.
Because of money.
Yeah.
The board never agreed to eliminate that trip because it was not educational.
I don't think this is the place for this discussion. I don't think that's neither here nor there.
You got all the different countries we can do.
There you go.
Sure. And we can go on the premise that physics is going to be Great Adventure to primarily do physics at Great Adventure.
I just think,
Got a big guy like me,
Here's your physics. I think at this point, I think there's enough interest, but yet enough concern that I think that we really do need to talk about this first. I don't know that we're prepared to make a decision this evening. I know that we are having a board meeting on the 18th, and hopefully we can get it to have that conversation at that point.
So just so I'm clear, so when I talk to the students again, it seems like the two issues that the board are concerned with, and I want to speak for everybody, just what I'm hearing from individuals is the exclusivity of potentially the trip presents and potentially the liability of it being a school-sponsored trip.
Educational purpose. Those are two.
Well, I think
many school districts do the trip, so I hear you. But many,
That's what the commissioner says.
If it was done after graduation, what would change?
The pricing problem.
It's a parenting problem.
If it's a summer-based event, those
graduation,
prices
you're
are going to
done. I mean,
skyrocket. It's going to be
I
impossible
agree.
for most people to go.
It's a pricing. It would be pricing.
It's so much more expensive.
It's more expensive in the summer.
We can do it
It's
during
season.
And it's a different concept. You're moving into your last summer with your family. It's a completely different.
Well, I think the
animal, and that's when
consideration at this point is whether the board will support it now when you're talking about it. I think that's the question on the table. and we'd just like a little bit of time to discuss
That's
it. So.
no problem. Again, thank you, ladies, for coming.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. By the way, I give you both a lot of credit, so thank you very
You're
much.
very well spoken, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you proud, Theodora?
I'm very proud of my
There
little
you
girl.
go.
No, she's not a little girl.
Get the checkbook out.
Ladies, if you like it, we're about to
And
do-
I can tell you how much a prom will cost me at the end of prom night.
Our next topic is
Choices.
policy. So now would be your opportunity. Our first issue for policy reading would be the first topic is the tape recording of the executive session. In accordance with the stated purpose of the policy reading, policy number 2330.1, tape recording of executive sessions. In accordance with the stated purpose.
Move the further reading. We'll get that.
Members of the Board of Ed are prohibited from tape recording executive sessions absent the consent of a majority of the board. It's right there. It's approximately one sentence. So,
I thought we were taking out the word tape.
I thought so too.
okay.
I think recording, yeah, that's fine. I think this is pretty
So by
self-explanatory.
correct. So by taking out tape, and we're
Because we
good
have
to.
so many different devices
In
now.
the title.
So just recording and within the body of the policy. Okay. So can I get a motion to approve with the words tape removed from the title and the second?
I think
All
we're
those in
voting in
favor?
favor.
So I think that's.
Put that on the list.
The next one is the first reading for the Dignity for All Students Act, policy number 0120. The Board of Education recognizes that learning environments that are safe and supportive can increase student attendance and improve academic achievement. Just to give you a flavor of what this topic is about. Well, just
I'll wait till the next time.
that's what we're looking for. As you can see, this is something that has gotten a tremendous amount of discussion in the past 2-3 years. It's really taken on and Marion, who's
Marion.
Yes, we had, the policy committee had discussed it, and we do have a Dignity for All Students Act policy, which was enacted in 2012, and the law was enacted. But we made some changes, in particular, if you scroll down a bit, to add some of the cyberbullying elements in which are required. And then, so we just made a few other changes as well. And this was done with, after our new director of PPS had analyzed our policies, and he thought it would make more sense just to have a more updated policy that the district could have ownership of. So we made a few amendments here.
just in 2 years. It's changed that dramatically.
Yeah.
Part of it was the timing of when the reporting would be done.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so it's more detailed as far as when the reporting is done. And it's and there's also some things that aren't in the policy. For example, I know Blue Mountain has an anonymous reporting form on their website, which is great. So there has been a lot of development in the past 2 years.
so the main focus, though, is adding again, like the cyberbullying, and to and to change the timing. Is there much else dramatic that's compared to the list?
No, what the policy you have in front of you spells out really roles, responsibilities, and a timeline for reporting and documenting.
Okay.
Just like to say really quick, tomorrow after school, I'm meeting with Mr. Swirlaw about website filtering and from the students' perspective.
From last time, awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome, Jazz.
he reached out to me, and so it's pretty great. So social media definitely will be something that comes up, and if the board decides to allow the unblocking of social media on the school's network, that'll obviously bring in another question regarding cyberbullying and regarding the school's kind of intervention in such issues. So for the future.
All right. This is a first reading, so they will be part of the conversation at our next board meeting. Are there any questions in particular that you might have before we consider it, in the next 2 weeks?
We didn't have anything.
Okay. So then, we will just put this aside and discuss it and put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now. And that brings us to audience comments.
I actually have a question about policy. I brought up a point about the electronic nicotine distribution systems.
That's a great point.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw it, Lori, but somebody told me quite rudely that they could smoke one of those smokeless cigarettes anywhere on our fields, that had nothing to do with the school. Technically, he's right, because our policies talk about tobacco. And this is an electronic nicotine distribution system, so we need to modify our policy and code of conduct.
You need to
to
smart
address
up because it still has nicotine in it.
Alice, do you know
Correct.
code of conduct
But it-
include electronic cigarettes?
Yes, I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Does have nicotine in there.
So then it would just, our policies
Well, it
need to
does, it has
reflect our code
nicotine
of
in it, but
conduct.
it's not tobacco.
Well, if we're
It's
talking
gotta be
for adults, or
cohesive.
are we talking for adults? or-
Adults and children.
Well,
because they can drink.
electronic cigarettes are identified as
Not allowed.
not allowed in our code of conduct.
And is that as well as electronic vapors, vapes?
Yeah, that was one of the. That was one of the.
Yeah, we did add it.
Yeah,
That's
they're
right.
anything that you think you're trying to get away with is the wrong thing, right?
I'm just asking.
Are you sure? Because I thought it says smokeless products. It didn't say electronic. And that's kind of, California came up with that description, electronic nicotine.
We have to look at it,
distribution
though. You're right.
system.
We'll definitely have to look at it.
We'll add it in.
We can make it clear here, though, we do not allow.
Alright, so that could be on their to-do list. That brings us to board comments. Any new business?
You want to talk facility, or does that mean committees?
The committees got bypassed.
I skipped. Sorry.
So if, fine, then why don't we, the committee meeting, send the committee reports since those were missed earlier.
We just have facilities this evening, Carson.
We did. Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Lori. That's why I came back, just for this point right here. Facilities today talked about the current bond, where we are. Obviously, Matthew gave us a presentation last week on technology. We were updated on the what's going on with the HVAC, electrical. Those items are up at SED right now, waiting for approval. Timeline is 2015, summer of 2015, and we're going to hopefully have approval so we can start doing some of this work. We also discussed Siemens. We are going to go out with an RFP, I believe, or RFQ for the solar instead of just going with the Siemens initially. And then we also talked about the Smart Bond Act and where we're looking at possibly that money's going to go. Right now, Matthew, Anthony, and Enrique are looking at the different options we have, where we can spend that money and where it will be beneficial to the district. So there's more to be followed up on it, but there's more information we will get once they work up the numbers. Matthew's looking at some things, especially in light of the scares that we had over the last couple of weeks, improving some security issues and things along those lines.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are our issues.
BVPTA met the other night, and one of the really encouraging things was they were talking about something that all the PTAs are working on together, which is creating a district-wide spirit wear website, so everybody gets the same color, the same logo. Look, that's something. Well, you asked for it in strategic planning several years ago.
For 5 years. Talking about it. It's being headed up by Nancy Byrne here.
Yes, and so that was good to hear, and then part of the branding.
Right.
And then Josh talked about the other things, and they asked questions about the transportation issues that we were discussing a couple weeks ago. And Barbara gave them some clarification, and that was good to hear. The other thing that one of the participants there talked about is that Channel 11 is doing a series on news this week. It's a 6-day series that started on Monday. Sunday, yeah, 10:30 to 10:30 on the heroin epidemic in the New York City area. And it's not just, I watched it one night and it was about Staten Island. It's about the whole area, how things are going tough.
It's another comment. everybody probably knows this, but the Malcolm Bump Tournament is this weekend at the high school, which is an amazing, very prestigious tournament. Children come from all over tri-state area, and there's always, and Massachusetts as well. There's still a need for people to house students, apparently. I'd only volunteered last night, so there's, and it's just a great opportunity because you only have students for one night, and you pick them up, they leave early in the morning, and you give them some snacks. They're amazing kids, so something to think about. There's still room and still need.
Anything else? That brings us to the end of our meeting. We will have a brief exec afterwards, 5 minutes.
We also meet and greet this Sunday.
Getting there.
Yeah.
We do have a meet and greet at Dunkin' Donuts. It will be this Sunday. We had somebody in the community who requested that Sundays maybe it might be a shot to, to bring in a broader array. And we have board members who agreed that Sunday would work better for them as well. So this Sunday at 8:30 at the Dunkin' Donuts, same location, just a different day. And our next board meeting after that will be Tuesday, November 25th, 2 days before Thanksgiving. The shift is because of the holiday. And it will be here at the high school. So that will be 2 weeks from last night. And there is the 18th, but will just be a short board meeting that's to approve the BOCES candidate.
We just need a time and place.
We need who can come, when and where?
9:30 on the 18th.
What's that? 9:30.
Whenever we can fly.
How long will it be?
It won't be that long. Again, we can
5 minutes.
5 minutes. But and are there 4 individuals? What time can you make it?
9:30 is perfect.
9:30 in the morning. 9:30. Anybody else? Charles and Carson have signed up.
That's the same day that we're having the interview
No,
hearings. At the same place, the 18th.
Yeah.
I'll resend that.
Yeah, no, but are they going to be in the same? Are they going to be in the same place?
It'll be downstairs, but I'll.
Yeah, she's going to resend the email. So will you be available, Barbara? On the 18th at 9:30?
Okay.
That's 3. Is there?
I can't do it tonight, but I can do it earlier.
My husband said I have to learn to just say no.
Do it at 8.
Well, it could, unless
fine.
there's. Can you do it at 8?
I'm not sure.
8?
Well, we have a problem because we can't get 4 otherwise. We have to find a day and a time that works for everybody.
Well, it has to
I
be.
can do it.
It has to be on the 18th.
And it has to be the 18th, and I can't make it.
I can do it as late as
At
8:30.
9:30. What time can you make it?
I can't make it at all.
Oh.
I can do it as late as 8:30.
Marion has to go to work. That's why she's saying 8 or 8:30. So would you guys?
Can anybody make it?
8:30.
I can do it. I just, as long as it's 5, I can see it from work and back.
All right, you're 8:30?
8:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will 8:30 work then? That'd be you. You're the holdout.
Yes, Barbara.
No pressure. You can come. You don't have to be as pretty as you
I'll
are.
have a big cup of coffee for you.
8:30 on the 18th, please.
8:30 a.m.
At the district office.
Clear the baby.
At the district.
Bring them with you.
Bring the baby.
Bring it with you.
Bring the baby, yes. Bring the puppy, bring the baby.
There you go. Thank you very much. I get a motion to move to exec.
So moved.
Second.
Laying
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.